Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ranger shop. So as you know, this Ranger is supercharged, but we've been running into some trouble with developing too much heat from the boost. So in this episode, we are going to install a heat exchanger. Follow along, let's see how we can do this. Okay, so our first step here is we just want to get the supercharger off. So you've taken one of these things off. It's actually not too bad. What we're going to do is we're going to just take our pipes off. We're going to take the belt off, obviously, and then we're going to lift this whole assembly with the upper intake all off in one piece. So let's get started. I'll show you how we're going to do that. So far all the bolts have come out really nicely. I Loctited them when I put them in, but it just blew Loctite. There's one that's at the back. It's a little bit tight, but just a couple extensions. This is just what I used, 10 mil with a swivel. And then this one right up here's a little bit hard to get to, but ratcheting wrench, no problem. I don't know if you can see that one right in there. I'm gonna just buzz the rest of these out of here, and then what I want to do is just put a block of wood in here and just pry the supercharger up, and hopefully it'll just come apart right there. Let's see. Man, that was stuck down there really good. Like you saw, I had to use the big 6-foot pry bar. So I just ended up prying between this thin 1/8 plywood and this 2x4 down in here, just underneath the snout. Got under there, and it is now loose. Okay, so let's take this thing out of here now and get that lower intake off. So one thing I notice in here that I don't really like is I got a lot of oil. I feel that. That's a lot of oil. So I think I need to put like a catch can on this so that it's not sucking in the oil from the engine. Okay, so I'm just going to stuff these full of rags and then loosen all these bolts and then pop this lower intake out of here. I just might vacuum around here first, make sure it's all clean. Supercharger and upper intake all off. See, it's a little oily in there, don't really like that, but not a bad job at all. Probably took me 20 or 30 minutes to get this off, faster than the factory intake for sure. Anyway, so now I'm just going to clean this up, tape this over, because I'm going to take this whole thing into the radiator shop so that they can fit the intercooler heat exchanger in here. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, because as you know this is adjustable to where you want to line up that pulley in line with the accessories here. So I'm going to just mark this intake down here where I can see the intake and the head. I'm just going to put a mark right there, and then same on that side. I'm going to put a mark right there. I'm just going to etch it in with a pick. So then I know exactly when I drop this back on, boom, goes there, because it's lined up perfectly so far. Okay, that's it. So I got it all taped up here so nothing gets inside. Got off the RTV silicone. Got my tanks here. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to take this all down to the rad shop. He's ordered in the heat exchanger. I got to get a few bolts to bolt down this thing. And then that's it. It's looking really good.
So here's a little slideshow of the parts that I used. So you can see this is the heat exchanger here. And what I did is I teamed up with a friend and we got two made. It was the same cost for the core, and so we split it, and then the radiator shop just cut it in half. But you can see the difference between this kind of core and say like a heater core. This is much thicker, stronger, and it gives a lot of good meat for the tanks, the end tanks, to be welded to. So it gives you a good quality product.
Okay, I'm going to try and film this the best I can. So I've got the lower intakes all cleaned up. This is our intercooler that I had made up. I mean, it's pretty good. This little bit here is touching a little bit on here. So I just filed it down very slightly. And now when I put it, as long as it's all the way slid all the way forward, I don't have any rocking. So that's good. I'm going to use red Loctite on my bolts, and I am just going to use RTV silicone on here because I feel like that's probably going to be the best way. I could put a gasket in here. I was thinking of doing a rubber gasket, this whole thing with the bolts to hold it, but I just feel because this is not 100% even, it's got a little teeny bit of play, that the RTV is going to seal that gap up the best. Okay, so let's get it assembled. I've got it marked which side is the best on this side, and a little mark on my thing, and then I want it slid all the way forward. So right about there. That looks pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to put a thin layer around the hole here, and let's hope it works. As you can see, I just put some out on the sides too because I want it to support this thing from rocking in here. I think what I'm going to do is just put these bolts in first and then kind of slide it in. Okay, so I got my mark there. I'm going to hold it up, slide it in. Okay, I'm going to set it down here. Looks good. It's going to work great. Take a look in here, just see how everything's sitting. Our holes, I just got to clean out the holes here a bit. Yeah, it looks really good. Let me see if I can show you this here. So you can see right down the hole, right into the intercooler there. That's looking pretty good. Those holes are lining up well. Underneath, see how close the weld is to the intake there? But it's looking pretty good, nice and flat. Same with this side. So I've got a new intake temperature sensor. I went with a plastic one. So this is the intake temperature sensor I went with. Unlike the metal one that I had in there, it's plastic, so I'm hoping it'll stop the heat soak. And the other one was touching the metal. And what happened is I think it was reading the temperature of the engine rather than the temperature of the air. So I think this is going to help improve things a little bit. That's going to go in there. Okay, here's the setup. So I'm just putting in these little elbows for the supply. And what I want to do is I wrote down here. So this is the back of the engine, and the intercool or the supercharger sits right about here, probably right till about here it ends. And I'd like to supply the cold air right under, or the cold water right underneath the supercharger. So I'm going to supply this side. This is going to be the cooled water coming in here, and then I'm going to return out of this side. Okay, so let's get this thing installed on there. What I'm going to use to seal these threads, because as they're actually quite loose, is I'm going to use this Master Orange, it's called. It's Teflon tape. It's a little bit thicker than the white stuff, but especially this stuff's good because it's impervious to all chemicals and anything else. It's actually used for gas quite often. So also the back one here, it's going to have to be just slightly off to the side so I can come out and around this sensor and then out down the valley and out. That's pretty good. Get it bolted on, get some lines, and pressure test this thing. Oh, I should mention, we'll pressure test it the next day because this RTV needs 24 hours to set before we put any pressure to it. Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how to mount the heat exchanger up here for the intercooler. I've got this little radiator. It's for an ATV. It's like a 2-core thick radiator, pretty good size. I think it'll fit right down in there on this side, not too bad. So what I'm going to do is just pull out this grill, get that out of the way, and then we'll be able to see roughly what we got to do to make that fit. Okay, this is what I think I'm going to put in here. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go. I'd like it, I'm trying to get it as low as possible so that the air in this tank will come out in the little degas bottle. And this, I think, it's just about perfect right there. So now I got to try and figure out a way that I can mount this on there. Okay, so this is what I got so far. I'm not sure if you're anything like me, but I always have a hard time planning all this stuff out exactly. I'm kind of more just start, see how it works, change as we go. So this is what I got. So I've got a couple L brackets here bolted to this brace and then bolted to the tank. This is from, well, I'll link this tank in the description. It's just an ATV tank for, I think it's 1,000 cc ATV or something. Down below here I was thinking I'd just put a little L bracket in here, drill and tap this here, and then that'll hold the front nice and solid. So then I'm going to cut these tabs off here. I was thinking of using these, but I like this mounting much better. It's a little bit high. Rod here might not quite fit in there, but I wanted to keep it up because I don't want to block the flow into my radiator in the back. Even though it's got this triple core radiator in here, which is really good. It keeps it ice cold, but anyways, I don't want to block any more than it already is. So I think that's looking pretty good. I'm thinking that I'll have my inlet come in here up top and then my outlet down below here. I think I got my last hose made up. I'm gonna have to run just heater hose into here. I'm gonna get a preformed 90-degree heater hose, come into here, and then right away into the AN fittings and into the braided line. This one I'm gonna block off, and then the other one down here. Down here, same thing, just a 90 molded heater hose from there into the pump, then the pump into the fitting down, or into that fitting down there, through the hose, all the way back and into the front. Then it comes out over here, through here, and then from that T straight through underneath kind of the battery, and I come in through the bottom here, up here, and then across and into there. What I'm gonna do now is I'm actually gonna install this lower intake, get it all RTV'd down. Remember, I've got my marks here so I know exactly where it's going to go for positioning my supercharger. So I'm just going to clean this up, brake clean all these ports, and then RTV it, bolt it down, and then we're going to call that done. Then I'm going to route my hoses. I'm having a real hard time trying to get the air out of it. Okay, so now I've been getting this all buttoned up. So this is bolted down and dry, and just been cleaning the RTV off of here. Now I'm going to just take this tape out of here, do a trial fit, and then put a nice bead of RTV around here and get this on there. Okay, here's that pump all bolted down. I just used a little lug nut in behind here to space this out, just so that it wouldn't rub and then vibrate on the vehicle right here, so it's still all on the rubber mount. Hoses aren't touching. This hose in here looks pretty good. I think we're set. What I was thinking too, after I get this done, I'm going to take like a plastic bucket and cut the bottom of it and then have it curved up underneath, just so that it'll deflect any of the water and stuff that's going to get kicked up away from this. So our pipes are all hooked up. It goes right there, tie strapped around inside. I'm going to leave this one open while I bleed the system. Here's my return line coming out of the intercooler. So it hasn't hit the heat exchanger up front. So it comes out of the intercooler through the back, and then this is like, it drops down quite low, and then this comes up quite high here. This is above the intercooler that's over in that valley. So this being above, it causes a spot where the air collects, and then the air is coming out of this tube and it's going to go into my reservoir, which this was the highest spot I could find because it fits right in kind of that dip in the hood. So I've got that up nice and high, and then I'm going to be tying in this tube that's going to bleed the air out of the system. So it's an open system. This one's not going to have any pressure in it. I think this is going to work out okay. Let's get that tank installed. There we go. coming out of the fitting here, up at an angle to the tank. Let's fill it up and see how it goes. Okay, so now if you can tell from this, it's been a couple months since I originally installed the intercooler, and everything's been good. There's been no leaks. I can see the coolant circulating well. I've been monitoring through my data logger, the temperature, everything's looking good. So now I want to share it with you. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the truck nice and hot. I'm warming it up right now. Then it's not a really super hot day, but what I want to do, and I haven't done this yet, so we're going to see how this works, but I'm going to take the fuse out of the water pump that's circulating the coolant through the intercooler, the heat exchanger. We're going to do a nice long drive, monitor the temperature, and then we'll do the same drive, but I'll plug in the fuse so we know the coolant circulating. That'll give us a rough idea. Unfortunately, I just don't have a hot day where we can test this, and it would have been perfect if I was towing my trailer, but I've just been so busy. I haven't been out camping, and I just want to get this video out to you guys. So let's go, let's try it out and see how it does. Okay, I'm in the area now that I want to do the test. It's a nice gradual slope, and I've got about a quarter mile before the hill starts. So enough to build the temperature and then to see if there's any temperature change under load. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try and hit the exact same RPM. I'm gonna hit the same boost, and I'm gonna hit the same gear as I'm going up the hill. So the first test is gonna be with the intercooler running, everything working as it should. Second test, I will take the fuse out of the intercooler pump so we know it's not circulating the coolant. It'll just, whatever that temperature in there for that coolant, once it's saturated the heat, that's it. It won't exchange it. I'm gonna wait until I don't have any traffic, so I've got a nice clear shot up this hill. Let's see, I'm kind of interested to see what happens here. I'll give you a screen recording of my gauges as we go. Okay, so I just pulled the fuse out of the intercooler pump, and it's interesting already right now, just sitting here idling, the temperature's climbed. It's climbed about 10 degrees difference, and I'm just going to show you the difference here. What I'll do is I'll put the fuse back in, and I think we're about 53 or 54 degrees, and just watch, it drops 10 degrees as soon as I plug it in, like within minutes. So that's quite a significant drop of just idling here. And right now my electric fan is only on stage 1, so it's got a couple stages where it'll increase speed, but because my coolant temperature is not that high, it hasn't gone full blast yet. Yeah, so I hope that makes sense. Let's go for a drive now and let's see what happens under load. Okay, here we're back in our test area. I've got my nice clear road ahead of me with this nice grade to the hill. So I can already see the temperature just to get from where I took out the fuse, which is only like a block away, to here. It's climbed up to, it's about 60 degrees right now, so it's quite hot. Anyways, I'm gonna try and do the exact same thing. So we sat here for about 2 minutes talking, and then we did the pull. And same gear, around 3,000 RPM, fourth gear. That's what we're shooting for again. Let's do it and then see what happens. Wow. I'm pretty impressed with the difference. I'm shocked. That is pretty good cooling. You know, we're looking at like probably 15 degrees difference. That's significant. That's enough between a detonation, getting a pre-detonation, ruining an engine and not. So I'm quite happy with this system. I'm gonna stick that fuse back in before I go and damage anything. Right now we're only working on 4 pounds boost. So yeah, that's good. I'm feeling a lot more comfortable approaching this, you know, 6 pounds, 5.5 pounds boost pulley that I want to put on. So that's going to be the next step. I bought a tuner. I'm going to manually tune the 4 liter. We'll talk about that a little bit, and then we're going to put that pulley on there. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you some content or some information maybe that you can't find elsewhere. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, like and subscribe as we continue to modify this Ranger. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.